Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast podcast, YouTube video interview program that features me talking to some of the best and brightest in the atheist slash secular slash awesome community. This is episode number 71. We're recording live on October 13th, 2016. Thanks again to John Hamill of Atheist Ireland for being on last week. Check out his Twitter feed at JohnHamill151. I assume that's a reference to the proof of booze he has to drink to taste it, for some lively back and forth with theists. He's answering questions, and it's a lot of fun. So tonight, doing a bit of a collaboration. I really enjoy it when two of my favorite breweries come together to make a beer, so consider tonight a super group between me and Southern Belle Humanism. You first met Amber Geislinger on episode 46, and she had me on her show about 2 months ago, so I don't really want to think of my guests as people I have finite conversations with and then it's over. I kind of want things to continue. So tonight's the continuation of a conversation we've had online and on the phone over the past few days. Since I've had Amber on before, I'll do a little humble bragging from my end. Note that the humble bragging is 100% attached to knowing Amber. She's a Southern activist slash feminist, although we may have some choice words over the F word before the night is over. This is her time of the year. She's broken out the elf ears. She's also probably drinking some amazing beer tonight, which you'll display in a moment. Well, that's about all I have for now. So welcome again to the show, Amber. And what beverage do you have to share this evening?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on again. And let's see, it's called Vulcan Ale. And can you see that?
Yep.
Spock is on there. And it's by federationofbeer.com. You can go check that out. It is a Red Session IPA. And as we discussed last time I was on, my husband and I, we also brew our own beer. So that was one of our first dates, brewing beer. So yeah, we're both beer lovers.
Almost thought you had you're going to bring out the special beer from that. But yeah, I gotta work my way up. I am doing another show after this, so I gotta pace myself a little bit. So Westport Goza, although sadly with the white screen on the other screen, it's kind of a blinding situation. Let me see, like that. Yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
I've had some of that. That's good.
Westbrook is based out of South Carolina, and they have some of the favorite beers. They have a key lime version of this that I really like. That's kind of hard to find, and the regular Goza is available a few months a year. I mean, this is the season. I have like a Sam Adams for later.
Oh yeah, I have some of that in the fridge.
It's a good, relatively cheap, and quite cheap for me because I'm such a snob. Beer choice. So, Amber, can you give a quick introduction of yourself for everyone who isn't evolved enough to have checked out your channel or our previous interview?
Sure. I am Amber Geislinger. I have a channel called Southern Belle Humanism. It mostly deals with just human rights issues in the South and the American South. And I also have some fellows on who are authors and artists and stuff, sort of regional Southern authors. And you can check out their work. Ralph Pullins is one. He just released his novel Anti-Artist, and if you're a guy, you'll probably dig it because it's about sort of teens in their angst going through a punk phase, and it's really good. And then my other friend, Dr. Leverett Butts, he's an H.P. Lovecraft specialist, and he has a whole series of books out. So please check out both of those guys. They're great. So That's what I do. I'm also, like you said, I'm a second wave feminist. Clarify second wave, which means, I'm all for, women voting and getting educated and all that jazz. And but I'm still very proud to be feminine. I'm a girl and I like men. So I'm second wave. And I'm a cat lover. I'm married to a physicist and I'm an English teacher. I like space. I like outer space a lot. I'm a Star Trek fan, huge Star Trek fan. And I have been known to wear elf ears and I do a lot of yoga. So there you go.
Yeah, if you follow Amber or your friend on Facebook, you get to see things like the HD video that it's like a Japanese probe is showing of the surface of the moon, which actually looks like some kind of CGI thing. And it's like, no, this is actually the moon. So it's pretty cool that we had that view, because I think everybody thinks of the moon and goes, oh yeah, the 60s and the you know, it was
great.
done on a soundstage, right?
Right.
In Hollywood, so it's obviously not real. But you know, conspiracy theories. We may not get there tonight, but you never know. There's fear involved. You never know where
we're going to go tonight.
where we'll end up.
Yeah.
Point of this show, we're loosely organized. I can tell you I have notes, but it might just be gibberish up there. So, why did you make this show name change from Southern Belle Atheists to Southern Belle Humanists?
Well, I went from atheism to humanism because I felt that the people that I knew, I kind of fell into atheism when I married my husband. And I think I need to kind of clear something up because I had a blog that went viral last year. Like, I think it was Godless Mom asked us to do a questionnaire, write a blog about why are you an atheist? And I did it, and it ended up on Reddit and all this weird shit. And I had no idea until I checked my blog a month later. And I'm like, dang, a lot of people read that. Because I'm not on Reddit, so I don't know what the hell's on Reddit. But actually, I recently got a Reddit account. It's not very fun. But anyway, I just decided to change the name because a lot of people that I met on Twitter, they were just going a different direction. And until I really got involved and came out as an atheist on Twitter, I didn't realize all the factions. I guess I was kind of naive, and I thought the term new atheist meant that you were just outspoken and you really appreciated Sam Harris's books because they kind of helped you win arguments when people were ugly to you. I was wrong. Either I was wrong or new atheism got hijacked or something happened, because it's really ugly. It's gotten really ugly, and it's not any better than the other radical extreme, which would be atheism plus, when you get all your third wave intersectionalist social justice warrior people. And so both extremes, I just decided, atheism is really just a negation anyway. That A is a prefix, and English teacher in me, that the A simply means lacking or without a religion, without a god or gods. So basically, as we talked before, the one unifying thing that atheists have, we don't have a god, we don't have a religion. And that's it, and Richard Dawkins always says it's like herding cats, and he is quite correct. It is like herding cats. And my best buddy, David Robert Grimes, physicist at Oxford, often has noticed on Twitter that, a lot of these guys who are rather rude to people like you and your friend Zach, they think that claiming to be an atheist or stating they're an atheist and being really obnoxious about it makes them smart by osmosis, and it just doesn't. So that's David's weigh in on that. But yeah, so atheism was just not the hill I wanted to die on when I saw all this ugliness, because I thought it was just about people, not being ashamed of saying, hey, I don't need that thing called religion. I'm not going to go join your little club. You're not going to persecute me or discriminate against me. And I guess I was wrong about that. So I just decided to rebrand, and I could still conquer all the human rights issues I wanted to under the title humanism. And I really like that philosophy, because humanism is really great at respecting the individual as well as the individual's place within society, the globe at large. And so I felt like for me to just be Southern Belle humanism, it made a lot of sense, because what I'm working on now is actually a form of human trafficking, as you know, called adoption trafficking. And there's a lot of violations that are going on in this state. There's a lot of exploitation of women. There's a lot of racketeering, underhand selling of fetuses and babies, and it's not only is it illegal under constitutional law, but the UN has started to get involved. So there's a lot of things that we can talk about on that. But when I really started to get in contact with all these really, really fantastic activists, this kind of like coalition of activists from all over fighting this form of human trafficking, I knew I had to pull away, and I had to create a name change. Because when I did present this to these atheist friends that I had met via Twitter, they laughed at it. They called it crazy. They didn't care. And this is a real violation that's going on. It's a human rights violation. It's babies being ripped from their mother's arms and sold to the wealthiest bidder. And it's just like Georgia Tan all over again, the baby scoop era. And this would be if they're looking to, and some of them I suppose are, if they're looking to be YouTube famous or something on some scandal, you think that, I was offering them, giving them this information, please, because I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to put my face on the internet. I've never done this before until last year. And they just laughed at it. But I noticed it was really hypocritical, because they cared about all these and this is both the little social justice warrior faction, but also the new atheist faction, all these little silly things like Gamergate, like video games, and Elevator Gate, and all these gates. And the only one I knew about was Shirtgate because my husband's a physicist. And of course, I thought that was just silly too. Who cares what someone wears on a t-shirt? So it was not only the trivial bullshit that a lot of people on Twitter were wanting to carry a banner for, is also the fact that I really needed to get this information that I had out. And I felt this moral responsibility, and I was so shy. I tried to get a couple of different girlfriends to do it with me, and that was a mistake because they just wanted to goof off and have a good time. And you can do that too, but I needed to really get this off my chest because there's a lot of things going on. So I just separated and I closed down Twitter. I also closed down Twitter because one of the main reasons, because of what happened to Mariam Namazi, who is an acquaintance of my friend Aki Mutali. And after these people, I guess Mariam Namazi had a disagreement with Sam Harris or somebody, and all of a sudden, for some reason, that it was okay for them to send out verbal assault threats like date or rape or death threats or something bizarre like that. And I actually saw it and tried to say to a couple of my friends who were in this community on the rise, this is inappropriate, and we should never give the moral high ground away. Never stoop to being low, like you would say Islamicists are, or religious zealots, or you would claim that social justice warriors are. Never start sending threats. Never go down the verbal assault road, because the moment you do that, you give that moral high ground away. You give them the moral high ground, and karma is just a numbers game. Eventually, that's going to catch up with you. If you put that out there, you're going to attract a bigger bully and more conflict. And maybe they like conflict. But when you're like me and you're looking to just, when you're not doing this for attention and you don't care about what people think, and you're really worried about your home, and you're worried about your friends that are hurting, and you just want to be heard, you do it just to get a message out there. And to promote that message that, there are these human rights violations. And Alabama is like a second world region in a first world country, and we need help. And I felt like that was going to be overshadowed if I stayed in this whole community and had the tagline atheist. And I just want it to be more inclusive, because all these people, these humanists, they're coming also from different religions and different backgrounds. And I wanted to make it really inclusive, because we are trying to make change and create a positive future. And I'm sorry, that was a long answer. So there you go.
No, I think that's why we're doing the show, is you got a lot to say, and there's a lot happening. I know I've seen interactions where people kind of get into these weird spats that end up going way too high, for just two people who disagree over something on a podcast. But then, like you said, it's that level where people compare to Nazis, and then there's these threats, and people think of internet threats, I guess, when they hand them out, not the same as like telling someone on the street you're going to injure them or cause damage to their family, because they wouldn't do it probably. But it's amazing how high level it gets. And I think for what you want to do is you necessarily want to focus on atheism, because you're right. It's like we both aren't fans of a particular football team. So what? There's got to be something else you have in common, or else it's going to be a really, really short conversation. Do you think it's harder to explain to somebody in general, like I'm a humanist versus I'm an atheist, or you don't really care about that distinction?
I don't really care, but I think you're right. I think it is hard to explain to especially to people who are really extreme. But like you, I think I'm just beginning not to care what they think, because even if they don't want to listen about what I'm worried about and what's going on here, well, they're not going to care. The problem could come knock on their door, happen to their daughter, and they wouldn't care. So that they're in another world. They're in some other doing their own thing, and that's fine. I think the problem is when they want us to care, and when they won't leave you alone, and when they do start bugging you, and they do want a response, and they keep on and they keep on. And you have erected a boundary, and you've said, no, nothing here is open for debate. Your issues are not my issues. No means no. It does not mean a maybe. It does not mean I'm going to come back later and engage you. No means no. I have nothing more to say. And when they keep on trying to, bring another point in or this, and there's no other point to bring in. And then they start, the thing is, a lot of these, and my friend Aki calls them atheist dude bros. I think that's hilarious. She coined that, atheist dude bros. And yeah, I think it's really hilarious when they start. I made an A in logic, okay? My first degree is pre-law. I have a master's in English. And when they start misusing logic, like logical fallacies and stuff, and they get the label, they get one label wrong they mix up the fallacies and they don't know what they're talking about. Just don't do that. Atheist dude bros, don't do it, please, because you just sound really dumb. And I'm not going to take the time to correct you. I'm going to let you continue to make that mistake. At first, I'd be like, no, you don't want to say that. That's wrong. So the point is, and there about how to use logic and grammar and all that jazz. The point is, I just think we just have to ignore them. And the thing with me, when I close a door, it's closed, and I don't do that maliciously. I don't lash out at people with vulgarities. It's just, you were a disappointment. You did something wrong. I had to call you out. And especially if you did it on Twitter or you condone something, and I'm just not going to be a part of that. I was not raised to be that way. And that's just how I feel about it. And I think that, there is a lot of discussion going on between, I know I talked to Dan Simpson about this, about humanist versus atheist once. And I think he was leaning more toward grabbing onto the whole atheist. I haven't talked to him in a while about it though too, but I do think that there's a lot of resentment that a lot of atheists have, that more people are going the way of being humanist. But kind of like what I said, the unifying factor is just, lack of religion and God. That's it. That was another long answer. I'm sorry.
Well, that's true. No, that's perfectly fine. The less I talk, the better. When it always does seem, when atheism comes up or humanism comes up, that you have to attach something else. That was the whole point. I think it was a good, the whole idea behind atheism plus was a good idea that yes, we want to be atheists and we want to be other things and help in the community and volunteer and be activists. But then it became you have to do this or you can't do this.
Right.
And it's no, we actually can do whatever we want. And maybe that's why it's going to be very hard for the whole non-believers, nuns to be a cohesive political group where we actually could have some power, because that should be happening now. But it's tough because it's hard for people to agree on what to call each other at this point.
It's very true. And we're all secular. I mean, we all have, we all are for separation of church and state and all that jazz. And so we're all secular. But like you said, the whole, and I think I put it, when you start putting other things, other terms on atheism, it gives Christians kind of a point when they call atheism a religion. When you start acting religious about it, very zealous about your beliefs. And I think that that's what a lot of radicals do, of any group, of any extreme.
Yeah, why is it that either religious people have to tell atheists that are acting like religion, which basically is saying religion is bad, or why do atheists always have to kind of attach things we do to kind of churchy things, like Sunday assembly or meeting and doing things that are churchy? I feel like we could do better things or go a different direction. I don't know. That's just a random thought I had while running today. So that's
I completely agree.
But could you talk about your activism, what's happening with baby Elliot and your work on adoption issues in Alabama in particular, and of course nationwide, because this is a bigger issue than that.
Yes. So what we're discussing, we could talk about the international landscape of adoption, which is very similar, but we won't, for sake of keeping it narrow, just this one little region, which I'll just stick to what's going on here. We could talk about DHR CPS stuff, but that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm working with. I'm working with private infant adoption, and that involves actually profit. And this is one of the reasons why adoption records are sealed. And you can refer to my channel, Southern Belle Humanism, to see a lot of different cases. There's one where I talk about with Lynn Johansson of Saving Our Sisters. It's one of the hashtags, Bring Baby Elliot Home. There's a recent one with some updates about the whole Baby Elliot Rosler case here in Alabama. So, and another all these laws kind of intersect. So as you know, constitutional law, 14th Amendment, the Parents' Rights Amendment, states that parents have a natural, innate, inherent right, birthright, especially women, to their children. Well, certain states that have really unscrupulous and corrupt laws allow for profit adoptions and things that are called pre-birth contracts, which do fly in the face of, you can't sell body parts, you can't sell fetus parts, because pre-birth contract is basically selling a fetus. However, that is not explicitly stated, okay? So when a very naive, marginalized, uneducated girl goes in and signs that pre-birth, she's just stating that she's getting financial relief and support from the would-be adopters and agency. She does not know that she's actually relinquishing her uterus, her fetus, and all those parts, okay, for their uses and their profit. And there's only a couple of states where this is legal. This kind of stuff is very illegal in places like Canada and Europe. It doesn't happen. You can guess it happens in Alabama, because it is. And also there's other elements to this law where there's a lot of fraudulent adoptions that have occurred in the state. And a friend of mine, Brooke Taylor, who was on this summer on my channel, Southern Belle Humanism, under Gracie's bill, actually explains why she's writing Gracie's bill, how her daughter was legally kidnapped, and how she's hoping to write a bill that will overturn fraudulent adoptions in the state of Alabama. And she's arguing partly constitutional law, of course, because we're going to have to go to this. A lot of this stuff is going to have to go to the federal level eventually. Also, interesting thing, the Huffington Post actually picked up my channel for that, for their, actually gave me a shout out, a little link to my channel on this particular episode. And they interviewed Brooke in their piece called A Mother's Love. And that came out this summer. Also, the Huffington Post broke the baby Elliot story. They broke Kimberly Rosler's nightmare of an experience with the adoption trafficking culture here in the South. And a lot of it is, what you think of the Scarlet Letter. A lot of it's the shaming still. Remember, it's Alabama. And it's a lot. I know it's difficult for people who are not here to really understand this is still going on in the 21st century, but it is. And what's going on recently, please check the back videos and the Huffington Post article, Wrongful Adoption, Part 1 and Part 2. It's that intense that there's a Part 1 and Part 2 by Myra Rybin. Please check out the Huffington Post article for the backstory. Currently, what's going on now, the adoption has been forced, so we hear. Supposedly, this is the first I mentioned this, supposedly Kimberly Rosler's attorney, Scott Hunter, is appealing this at state level, meaning supposedly the state attorney general has gotten a writ notification saying that pre-birth contract is being challenged, and it will be challenged at the Supreme Court level of the state of Alabama. Now, I checked on this, and a couple other activists did it as well. If you are a citizen of the state and country, you have a right to know, to ask for all public paperwork, documents about any law that is currently under challenge. Okay, so I contacted the Attorney General's office, got the runaround, of course, and it took me several weeks seeing if there is actually an appeal, because I was actually going to get the public documents and put them out there on a show like this. And they're currently denying that appeal, and that an appeal has been made, that a law is being challenged, or I should say appeal has been filed. So they're currently denying that. I went around with one person via email. Her last name is Patterson. She works for the Attorney General's office, and she basically denied that there was such an appeal, and maybe she is correct. We do not know, because she also, at the last minute, after talking with me for weeks, claimed that she couldn't tell me for sure because she had to have proof that I was a citizen of Alabama. And she quoted some little state code, which someone probably told her to do that. That's probably, to memorize state code, even attorneys don't have that memorized. And also, if you know anything about the Alabama state constitution, okay, this is not funny, but the Jim Crow laws are still on our book. Alabama will not remove the Jim Crow laws. So if they wanted, if our civic leaders wanted to go ahead and enact those laws, they could try, and that is scary. So there's our state constitution, the entire document needs to be taken before the Supreme Court of the country and completely just ripped apart. And that's something that's very difficult to get people to admit that shit here is wrong. And you think that would be obvious? And I don't. It's obvious to people like you and Isaac, but it is shocking the amount of people that, just like the atheist dude bros, will just stick their head in the sand, and they don't care. They don't care. But this is my home. I do care, and I do want to make a change. I'm probably related to about a fourth of the state of Alabama. So it does mean something to me, and I do want to make a positive change. But going back to the adoption thing, the adoption has been forced through, even though it was an illegal adoption. It was an illegal, unlawful, interlocutory order where they seized the infant. He was newborn, 3 weeks old. The sheriffs actually took him off of his mother's breast, grabbed him. It was because some paperwork was not filed after birth, and he already had a birth certificate, Social Security card. They've negated his actual real birth certificate, Social Security card, and issued him a new one. It's been over a year since Kimberly Rosler has seen her child. She's received no updates. And a lot of these things that I'm getting secondhand, and I know because it hasn't been released in the press yet. I'm just telling you here so we can just say it's hearsay. Well, how do I know it? Because the other side, the adopter's side, the single rich woman who bought Elliot, the attorneys were obviously screaming the last court date. Everyone heard outside the courtroom everything that was said because they were screaming. So there's nothing that was kept a secret, because that's how unprofessional the attorneys behaved. And, things carry in those marble walls. You'd think they would learn to not do that, but they did. So there's a lot of things going on with that. And it's to be in the, to know what they're doing, and to know that it is racketeering and there's actually a trafficking ring, and to not, because a lot of the stuff is under gag. All the judges are in each other's pockets. If you look up the attorney, who is a woman, by the way, Donna Ames, who's in charge of Adoption Rocks in the South Circle, they've all campaigned for each other. All the circuit judges, all the probate, they all have each other's back. The FBI tried to investigate, and I think this was about a year and a half ago, and nothing. I mean, walls just came up because they all just kind of held the line and covered for each other. So there have been a lot of things that have come out that I've been told to people. It's kind of like a network of just trying to get it to the right media source, because when this is all said and done, and I know I've said this before, it's actually going to be an actual ring, an actual trafficking, baby selling ring, and it's going to probably involve, it's probably going to actually involve, what we think of real human trafficking, what we think of sexual human trafficking. And I can't say any more than that, because I don't want to, say something and, it'd be taken as, out of context, and I'm not pointing fingers at any particular person. I'm just saying that if someone would actually give a damn, we need help. And so there you go.
So to make it, it's already pretty darn personal, but to make this whole situation, so what was the background of just the baby Elliot case in particular? So the mom agreed to the adoption, and did she change her mind at a certain point?
What we'll do, we'll go back, because I realize that your listeners, they probably won't watch their show and they may not even read the article. So Kimberly Rosler, Elliot's mother, was involved in a really abusive relationship and had nowhere to go. And she found out she was pregnant, was too far along to get an abortion. And her ex, and he basically threatened to kill her and the fetus, the child, before kick her in the stomach, all the normal things that abusive guys threaten. So she agreed to sign this pre-birth consent and follow an adoption plan. When she started living with a friend and got her life in order, completely dropped contact with him and changed course. Of course, rescinded. That was the only reason she ever considered, because, and the attorney and the wannabe adopter knew that. Like they were very aware. In fact, she was very close to the woman, and you find all this out through the Huffington Post article, who bought her child, who threw adoption rocks. And after, in fact, it was actually acknowledged. Everyone acknowledged that the adoption was off, that everything was rescinded. She never signed any final papers, never signed any paperwork. She was at the hospital, had her child, brought him home. 3 weeks later, the interlocutory seizure order was filed through the wrong court. There was never DHR or CPS involved. And they basically hunted her down through her abusive ex. Okay. And now, how did they get the address from her ex? Well, it turns out that this one attorney has had a lot of bad dealings here, and she's hunted down a lot of young mothers who even just briefly contacted her, whose families contacted her. There's a lot of horror stories coming out. She basically called the adopter, I don't even want to call her adoptive mom. She basically called this woman and said, well, he's going to be available after all, and you're going to have to get him through an interlocutory order. And she was friends with the judge, who was a judge over a court for youth, for minors, right? So he doesn't handle adoptions. He's over a totally different form of law. And she had her buddy sign the order. And his name was Judge Brown. And Judge Brown has said in the Huffington Post article, he would not have signed it if he had known it was about an adoption, because he has no jurisdiction over adoptions. And the fact that all this
an appeal right there, the case for an appeal right there, but
well, and immediately when Kimberly finally got an attorney, that's the first thing they did. Well, the original judge who signed that pre-birth consent wouldn't do anything about it. Judge Brown refused to rescind the order, and Don Davis recused himself, but appointed his personal attorney as judge of the immediate following trial, and all that ensued. Judge Druin. So it has been a nightmare. And if you think that's muddled, well, you need to read the Huffington Post article, Wrongful Adoption, and see what everything else, what all the other little elements that, and just the fact that they basically hunted her down. I mean, it's sick. She was at a friend's house, living with her friend and her friend's mom, and just came in and took her child because this rich, entitled woman wanted him. This 50-something-year-old woman felt like she's single, she's wealthy, she's lived her life. She just felt like she wanted a baby, and she felt entitled. So, but, and I wrote about this on my blog too. My blog is the Burning Times of Vesper Wolf. I wrote an article about this too. And it's just, I mean, it's been, this story is so similar to other stories in adoption trafficking, domestic, private adoption trafficking. That's different than you think about foster adoptions or international, all that. This story is very, it's very typical, and it's very sad, and it is scary. It's scary how easily they can manipulate the system and illegally separate a mother and child. When no one's, I mean, Kimberly's mental health has not been questioned. There hasn't been any DHR involvement. Nothing. It's just, they just went and took the child through the wrong court. And the Supreme Court knows this happened, and they gave her another retrial, but they had an argument before the retrial. So apparently there's not going to be a retrial because they had an argument, and they slammed down the retrial back in Mobile when they shot it down to Mobile. I'm really rather disappointed in the Alabama Supreme Court, but they've made a lot of mistakes, and they keep those Jim Crow laws on the books. So of course they're not going to care about a mommy and a baby. What do we expect for them to act like human beings?
Yeah, that's a there's so many weird angles to this whole thing, because I remember what a big deal was made about the whole Planned Parenthood videos and selling baby parts, and then with this adoption situation, you're actually selling. I mean, this is the kind of the anti-abortion. It's like, well, just have an adoption, and it's like, well, what happens with the adoption? Like, it seems like the way an adoption, quote unquote, should work and the way it is are far apart. But no one is paying attention to what happens, and that's just frightening. I mean, I always kind of rail against our for-profit kind of health system, because people's health probably shouldn't be something you make money off of. But then the concept that people are making money off selling a kid is just and of course kind of sort of legal, kind of sort of
it's and you when they go across state lines, which they have been, you can get them for racketeering and trafficking. But the thing about it is that you're right. It is, they're actually selling babies and they're selling fetuses. And just to knock down the false dichotomy, when you mentioned the whole abortion and adoption thing, that is, for those who don't understand the word false dichotomy or the term false dichotomy, it's a fallacy. And it's not an either or, black or white situation. Either you have an abortion or you put your baby that you birth, you give it away to some rich couple or some gay couple or some transgender who wants to experience motherhood. Okay, that's a false dichotomy. It's not an either or situation. To break it down dirt simple so people can understand that, the alternative to abortion is motherhood. Okay, it's motherhood. It's not giving away your flesh and blood, your family. Adoption is a parenting choice. It's a parenting style, a parenting choice. It has nothing to do, adoption has nothing to do with abortion. Now, why have these two things been convoluted and twisted and woven together? Because like you said, the pro-life movement, the anti-choice movement, and it makes them a lot of money. Currently, private newborn adoptions it's currently an estimated $15 billion industry. It's an industry. They actually call it an industry. Okay, that's sick. So, and if they really, really wanted people to choose life, well, then why are they not helping these women be mothers? Why are they not for social programs? Why are they not telling them in these pregnancy crisis centers about social programs and WIC and Medicaid and all these things that we pay taxes for? Because they want to make a buck. Because all those volunteers and all those little people that go and protest and all the people at the administration level and all these attorneys, whether they're pro-life attorneys or adoption attorneys, there's a reason they own beach houses along our coast. Okay, they're making a lot of money. And one source on your last show that I mentioned was a write-up from ABC News where it talked about the different races, like how much different babies go for, and it said like a white child goes for $30,000. And that's just the median right there. So like a white newborn baby. So, it's to their benefit to lie and to gaslight and to manipulate and to create this false dichotomy, this non sequitur that, it's an either or. And it's not a lot has changed here from the 1950s where they still do shame people. They still really shame women. There's when the minute a man doesn't want to take responsibility, that's the first thing he tries to leap to make himself look good. And, he basically, well, I'll just make her an incubator and I'll look good because I created a baby for, this rich couple or whatnot. So there's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of really gross, just the way that they talk about what they call birth mothers. And if you look it up, you actually research it, it'll probably, any decent human being out there, it's going to make you sick. And that's what we're up against. We're up against, and why is it so hard to change this false narrative and to correct the lies and the gaslighting and everything that's going on? Because the money's there. The people who make these laws, the people who are politicians and celebrities, they're always the ones adopting because they either don't want to ruin their figure by birthing their own child, or they put off family for education or to get somewhere to make a bunch of movies or whatnot. And it's interesting how if you have money, you can sell anything, you can do anything, you can make anything moral, anything right. Morality is relative when you have money, because you worship that almighty dollar. And it's coming down to that. It's coming down to, well, why do the pro-lifers claim that it's wrong to sell fetal parts to Planned Parenthood, but they're selling fetuses inside of women? Because they're going to gaslight and say it's because they care about life. No, they're making a lot of money on these nonprofits. They don't give a shit. They don't care what happens to that kid after it's born. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, that's the part that seems pretty straightforward and obvious. Now, this has to take a toll to do this, to follow these cases, to see what happens. So why is it important for you to be an activist, and what keeps you kind of going? And like, you just have to do this.
Well, I've said this before on programs. Sorry, my voice is going. I've been talking way too much.
You said that Vulcan ale, clearly.
I know. I need to take a sip of this. I think I will. Okay, so I mentioned before that my husband and I, grew up in a Catholic community, not the same Catholic community, but within the same state. And I moved from Knoxville, Tennessee to a little town called Coleman, Alabama when I was about 12 to 13, probably 12. And this little provincial Catholic community. And Brian grew up the one here in Birmingham. And this whole rhetoric, this human rights violation that we're calling adoption trafficking, accurately calling adoption trafficking, was just commonplace. And I saw it happen. I was an eyewitness to this. And people will call you crazy and say that you didn't witness it, but I know what I fucking saw. And to make matters worse, my poor husband, his family, his parents would foster these pregnant girls, would foster them, because this was the 1990s, and those old foster homes where they used to tie women down the beds and make them give birth in the mid-century out in Kansas City, well, those were all closed down by the 1990s because we're not in the 1950s anymore. So they'd have to do it. Catholic Charities would have to use private foster homes. And his parents used to foster these girls and make sure that the babies were taken from them and placed up for adoption. And of course, a lot of them went to their friends. And I mean, just sick. So my husband grew up seeing that. And you can imagine, and it's just not because it's just not something that affects. You think, oh, this is just terrorizes young girls. No, it impacts young boys too. See it. My husband, until recently, never wanted to be a father. Can you imagine as a young boy him seeing these older girls and just seeing them break down? I mean, it still affects him to this day. And my husband's not one that's emotionally moved because he's a physicist. But the things that you see, and you can't just say, no, that didn't happen. You can't just ignore someone else's pain. So I feel a responsibility. I mean, it happened to my cousin. I feel a responsibility as a human being to speak up. And that's something that will always, it's just, I can't believe other people turned away and just ignored it. And how, especially girls, when they became mothers and, had their own children, did they not think about the girls who had their babies taken from them? I mean, how do you just tell yourself it's not happening, or that it's for a better good, or that they were just too young to be mothers, or whatever sick excuse you're telling yourself? So that's why it means so much to me, is that, I saw it, and I felt like I was that one lone voice screaming into a void, shouting, does anyone else see this? Does anyone else see this? Because I saw it. And I know what's going on. I have proof here that's going on I can't tell you about. And gosh, if there is a hell, these people who are doing this, they are going to burn. That's all I'm going to say.
So for those who are listening to the show, you're missing out on the kitty greatness in the background. Who do you have in your lap right now?
This is Morgan. This is Morgana, my cat. Okay. Morgana. Sorry that I got a little bit deep there and a little bit.
No, it's fine. I just saw. I mean, it's my cats have no interest in jumping on my lap during a show. So when other people,
she knows exactly where you are.
Yeah.
She when I interviewed, I had Dan Simpson on from the atheism chat on humanism a couple times, and my cat Gabriel, I think, has a crush on him because he sang to Gabriel. So now she knows Dan's voice.
That's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
So someone who does activism, and this is something you kind of sent to me earlier, can you break down what you think the difference is between being like a volunteer, like an activist, and then the dreaded term SJW?
Yeah,
Social justice warrior, as we like to call it in the biz.
Yeah. And I know everyone like throws that social justice warrior term around, and it is thrown around a lot, but there is such a thing as a social justice warrior. Okay, so I kind of just said this on Facebook in my blog, and I'll just read what I wrote. As someone who has spent a portion of life volunteering and actively supporting causes, the following needs to be addressed and clarified. Activist, individual who actively incites change. Webster puts it, direct, vigorous action. Volunteer, individual who gives their time and resources to a cause expecting nothing in return. Social justice warrior, gaslighting, politically correct, selfish brat who champions pseudo causes on the internet and in universities for attention and or to achieve a righteous communal feeling of communal self-righteousness. There you go. And I think that that's the same thing that's sort of going on in the whole atheist dude bro community. I wrote one blog. I think it's entitled "Atheism is Not Your Toilet Paper," and I basically said, that the whole social justice warrior movement and the whole atheist dude bro, and I guess that also includes, and some of them may not even be atheists, but the MRA, I don't call them MRAs, I call them neo-misogynist. They're two halves of one coin. They're the same thing. They're each other's dark mirrors, and they're each other's boogeyman monsters. So and it's interesting to sit back and watch the exchange and then see how they're just the same thing. So there you go.
Yeah, the term gets thrown around. It's not quite as vague as when someone says they're a Christian. You need a lot more detail before you really know what exactly that means to them. And I still think social justice warrior can mean different things to different people. And some people wear the badge proudly, and you do see it's hard to, I don't know, is it, I know it when I see it, but that's definitely an issue that's happening at the moment. So how do we talked about this a bit earlier, but how do we approach this rising tide of shittiness going on in atheism, particularly the online kind? Like, do you stick with the original statement? Do you say, can you just let it fly over your head and let it go? And if someone does try to engage you, maybe attempt to talk or just move on?
The thing is, this is why I closed down Twitter, because my Twitter handle was getting, especially, I had a personal one. I was really pissed I had to close that one down because I had that since 2008. I had a lot of friends on there. Cat Fancy Magazine followed me. Cat Fancy Magazine followed me. That meant a lot. But yeah, I think in a lot of cases, like on Twitter, I think it probably best is just to rise above the muck and just always take the high road, because on Twitter, you don't even really, there's not a lot you can even say to somebody. I remember there was this really stupid, Aki calls them dude girl who thought I was an attorney. And she got me mixed up with someone else. And I don't know. And she just ran and raving and just fussing at me. I didn't know what the shit she was talking about. And to this day, I don't know, because my handle got mixed in with something else. And a lot of the really crazy, creepy people were coming from a couple of these former Twitter buddies that when I had a Twitter account, I would talk to. I was cool with them, but their friends were so obnoxious. And in my family, we have a saying, you are who you associate yourself with. And if they're associating with people like that, well, I don't need to be associating with them, because that kind of trashy behavior isn't going to get you anywhere with me. But so for the most part, I would rise above it. However, there are times on my blog that I'll write a little blog post. I'm not going to go post anywhere. If they happen upon it, that's fine. I'll write a blog about it because I'll rant about something stupid they've done, or I'll do a Facebook post. But I have a rule, since each app is different. Each social media, I guess, website is different. For me, Facebook is kind of where your personal home meets the world, and that's really weird. So I don't allow people to be contrary or to fight on my Facebook page, and I'll take them off or I'll chew their ass out. Because if my dad sees that, okay, my dad thinks like a lot of like atheist dude bros, or I tried to explain it to him, and the MRA people, atheist dude bros, neo-misogynist, I call them neo-misogynist. I tried to explain it to them. My dad thinks they're queer, that they're a queer group. He thinks they're a gay club. I'm like, no, they're not gay in his mind. So see, I have my family on my Facebook page, and they don't know what the shit they're talking about anyway. So that's another reason I don't allow people like that on my page that are social justice warriors, because my relatives here in Alabama, they'll just think they're gay or they're demon worshipers or something bizarre. So, and to them, I'm the eccentric free spirit of the family. I'm the one that's out there anyway. So anything that's more extreme than me is just satanic or something like that. So I don't allow people to do that. I will come down on people, and I will confront people who do that on Facebook. But I that's why I shut down Twitter, because like you said, just rise above it and not have anything to do with it. And I don't really do Reddit. I don't do any of that other weird stuff. I don't accept any friend requests for Facebook anymore. I don't let people on Instagram. My Instagram's fully private because that's kind of weird if people see it, inside your personal life. So yeah, that's for the most part, I just think you're just going to have to, just put the barriers up. And if, like for me, with what I'm dealing with is so serious, and I had to maintain such an image and a center of serenity within myself to be able to know all the things that I know, that I'm not going to deal with the trivial bullshit. I don't have time for little dude bros who want to sit up and say ugly shit to women and send death threats and all these who my dad thinks are gay anyway. He doesn't understand why they're talking to his daughter. So yeah, so it just rise above it and just don't mention their name, don't acknowledge them. Once someone proves to you that they're a bad apple, there is nothing you can do to save them. Once someone shows them who they truly are, don't try to repaint them. Isn't that the meme that goes around the internet? And, I think that you and I are, we're older. I'm 38 years old. I will be 39 next month. I do not care about some video game that every 21-year-old is playing and bitching about, okay? But, we're older and we're doing our own thing. And you interview people from all over the world, which is so amazing. And I'm sitting here in Alabama. I'm just trying to work on the issues in my home state. Hopefully, eventually we'll get the Constitution changed. And that's our state constitution. I'm just doing what I can here for my state from a secular humanist standpoint. And I'm trying to be inclusive and show respect of boundaries for people. Like I want people to respect my boundaries, so I'm going to respect their boundaries as well. So, I'm just rising above that, or at least I did back spring when I just closed down Twitter and said, I just told everybody I can't be a part of this. This is not how I was raised to behave. I'm 38 years old. You don't behave that way when you're 38 years old. So there you go. Sorry, another long answer.
Well, apparently some do, because that's.
Oh, you're right.
I mean, I don't know. I think there's many people who do this attack who are 22 is 52. I mean, it's just some people just aren't gonna get it, or they don't care, or they have like an online persona. And that's fine. But we can't finish this hour. We haven't even talked about feminism yet. So I want you to talk about this book project you have going on, because I feel like this is a really interesting subject and it's something that people are going to need to check out.
Okay, so I am a writer, and I've published before. I published under a publisher back in 2008, and they were a West Coast publisher. It was called Orchard House Press, and they went under when the economy crashed. So then I took that book and republished it. It was a collection of short stories and dark fairy tales, and it's called Lovecraft's Daughter. And that's my other website, Lovecraft's Daughter. This new project that you just mentioned that I'm actually working on is not creative. It's not fiction. It's nonfiction. And it's a group of essays where I am discussing, actually slamming intersectionality, which is third wave feminism. And I will give you a little bit of a teaser. Half the title is going to be why feminism failed. Now, keep in mind, I'm a feminist. I'm a second wave feminist. And I feel weird even clinging to or taking or saying that the feminist label is mine too. But the reason I still use that is because, you know, when I see or you hear about little girls over in India and Afghanistan and Syria and all these places getting attacked or shot or for just trying to attend school, how can you not say you're a feminist? Everyone, if you believe little girls should be educated, you're a feminist. If you believe women should vote, you're a feminist. If you believe in any sort of reproductive rights for men and women, you're a feminist. And that's just it. It's just part of human rights. And I wish that it had moved into humanism and part of human rights, but it got hijacked. And it got hijacked by an extreme. And that came out of the 1990s, and it is called intersectionality. And so basically the whole thing is me just ripping on that, but also telling about my own experiences with radical third wave. They call it third wave feminist. And so it's partly going to be debunking it, telling my own stories about what I've seen and how I don't really think there's a war between the sexes anymore. I think there's a war more within the sexes. I know that you have some radical factions that are in the minority, like, you know, the neo-misogynist and these misandrist sort of intersectionalists who would love to think that there's a great war between the sexes. No, it's within the sexes. And because, you know, women often are their own worst enemies. They often treat other women even shittier than men do. That's another thing I want to talk about. But I'm also going to talk about in the book how, you know, third wave feminism kind of created the whole MRA movement, how that was a backlash because intersectionality was such a Frankenstein's monster, is such a Frankenstein's monster that it created its own boogeyman. And they only have themselves to blame for that. You know, when you're ugly, you're going to be met with ugliness. And, you know, I don't like their rhetoric and I don't like anything from third wave. I think, you know, they claimed to be all inclusive and they were including different classes and different types of women, and that was a lie. It became, you know, in its own way, a hate group. And, you know, you don't hate to solve hate. That doesn't make any sense. So basically that's what I'm doing. I'm working on that.
And, you know, when you get done, I think I said this last time we talked, if promoting secular feminism, the show actually does come back. They've talked a lot about third wave, so it'd be an interesting conversation to have, because maybe it's similar to the conversation we had earlier about how sometimes atheists act like religious people, and then when you're dealing with a patriarchal situation where the power is unbalanced, is there any way to really make it even? Does it end up being a situation where somebody else is, no, we're not going to be even, we're actually going to be on top now? And then that does lead down a dark path. But it's like there's so many ways atheism is going, there's so many ways feminism is going.
Yeah.
You can get lost in a lot of threads, but I think it's good to talk about your own experience and what you've seen and what's happening, because obviously it's a problem. I mean, really just discourse we have going on this week with the presidential election, it's not pretty.
No, it's not, and there is a need for feminism because, you know, well, we've seen the news what's going on, but I think with me, I just kind of like the way I approach the atheist label. It's just what that means at its barest essence. An atheist, I'm just without a God, without religion. That's why I say I'm an atheist, you know. And I was going to clarify about witchcraft earlier, and you know, I'm still very much a witch, you know, but I'm atheist too. And I'm also a feminist, but only in that barest sense where, well, I think women and girls have rights, human rights. And people always try to put a lot on that. And it's interesting what you just said about like the topsy-turvy, the whole balance thing. Like now we're going to be on top. Someone say like, well, now we're going to be on top, or we're going to have this equally worthless egalitarianism. I hate that term, egalitarianism. It's so been like people, you know, both dude bros and social justice warriors. And I only listen. I don't get into it or comment as we've discussed. I listen because I want to know how I'm going to, because I'm totally going to just own everything that I say and make it to the point where exposing the word egalitarian as something that now people have wiped their ass with. And it basically means everyone is equally worthless. That's what egalitarian has come to mean. And that's kind of a shame, but that's what it means. The truth is, if you're talking about literal, physical, mental equality, no one's equal. I'm not equal to my husband. He's not equal to me in some things. I can do the splits. Can you do the splits?
No.
Zach, can you do this? See, but I can't do the splits.
No.
So we're not equal there.
And so in the hospital for attempting.
There's a lot of there's a lot wrong using that word equal, equality, and egalitarian, especially when people take it to mean that we can do the same things physically when we can't. Men can't give birth, and that's a good thing for y'all. But so that's also kind of what I'm. But what you were saying about, no, we're going to be on top and you're going to be on bottom. Honestly, I from the way that I've seen women treat women and the way I remember older women treating me, and I I don't talk about this a lot, but I've been through some things. I've been through domestic violence in another marriage, previous marriage. But I can honestly say I'd rather live in a world, a society where it's kind of like where we're at now, where it's kind of the patriarchy on light than live in a matriarchy. And I'm a feminist saying that. I'd rather live in like a matriarchy on light than a matriarchy because of, a lot of the ugliness that I've seen and I've experienced, from women. So, and as a child too.
Well, you got to be able to thread your experiences in. Now, I feel like because we've talked about such heavy stuff, we have to have at least one kind of light question before we call it a night. Do you especially enjoy this time of year, and does it bring back the Wiccan witch self?
Yes. Halloween. My husband, we got married the weekend of Halloween, so our anniversary is that weekend as well. And it's coming up in a couple weeks. I love Halloween. I usually dress up as an elf or witch. I practice witchcraft since the age of 15. And no, it's not religion. Witchcraft is a practice, and Wicca and witchcraft are two different things. So we don't have time to go into that. But yeah, this time of year, it's definitely my time. I'm a Scorpio. I was born in November. So this is our time. This is my time of year, and definitely feel something mystical. And I always think about, my childhood and growing up in Knoxville and in Tennessee. I've mentioned this before, the legend of the Bell Witch, and there's so many neat things about this time of year. So definitely brings out, I guess, the witch in me.
I'll be warned, everybody. Eye of Newt is going to be on sale or something. So how can people find you? Of course, all links will be available in show notes, but to get in touch with you or to watch your show and all that stuff, however you want, if you want to reach out to you.
Yeah, you can find me on Southern Belle Humanism. That's YouTube. And you can also find my blog, The Burning Times of Vesper Wolf. I haven't done a lot with that yet because I'm actually working on this book and I'm doing some research and some writing behind the scenes for humanist projects, for human rights stuff, adoption trafficking stuff I'm working on. So there's not a lot of new things on the blog. And you can, I guess for an email, just email me through YouTube or Southern Belle Atheism. I still have the old name, southernbelleatheism@gmail.com. That would be one way to reach me. So other than that, I don't have a large social media presence that's really public. I don't think that a lot of people out there are going to want to get on Pinterest. So I don't think that counts.
The undiscovered country, at least for me. Okay, well, guess we'll be calling it a night. So if anybody wants to support the show, you can be like Bobby, Hugh, and Teody and go to patreon.com/Zachrilege. Follow me on Twitter, like the Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook. I just did a review of this book, The Liberal Redneck Manifesto. That's right, Trey Crowder, Liberal Redneck, and his other comedian buddies. So you can go there and check it out. Send all hate mail to zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. Thank you again to Amber for being on tonight, and I feel like we might have to have a part 3 sometime to cover it all. And of course, check out Southern Bell Humanism, people. So stay safe. If you need to chat, I'm available. If you're an atheist and feel alone, you are not alone. Reach out. Let's chat and get that human connectiveness that keeps people coming back every Sunday. Stay skeptical. I love all y'all, and good night.
Good night.
And